Hello. Yes, I can hear you now.
Yay! Sorry, I'm
Um,
2 minutes late. I've had one of those days where the clock has not worked for me at all.
It's totally okay. Totally okay. It's like, I, my husband was like, "Why is it at 8:30?" I'm like, "Because she's in Australia, I think." Oh,
Thank you for doing your nighttime show.
okay. I just hope that I still my brain still works.
It'll work fine. You and your lovely self will just be fine. You don't even need to think.
I don't know about that.
Tell me what's prompted you to come on podcasts all over the world.
So I have a new book coming out, and I'm really excited about getting it out to parents and families all around the world.
And I like to ask this question of all my guests. Who are you? Where are you? And what do you love to do?
Okay, so who I am, I'm Dayna Abraham, and I'm the founder of Calm the Chaos Parenting, where we help parents create better relationships with their kids, create relationships where everyone feels empowered, understood, and connected despite whatever challenging situation they're going through. And I live in Little Rock, Arkansas in the US, but spent the last 21 years in Chicago. So I always
Oh,
get confused on
cool.
how to answer the where am I, but currently I'm a
Yeah.
soccer. And what do I like to do? Well, I like to help families. I like to spend time with my family. And then recently I have re-picked back up knitting. So that's what I do
Ooh,
in my spare time.
good times. That's my kind of fun. I like to crochet sometimes, although I'm a little bit out of practice, I'll be honest. But
I
I
have
do
to
love it.
learn how to crochet. I have a pattern that I got. One of my good
Mm.
friends runs like this knit along, and the bag that I'm gonna make next is crochet. I'm a little
Oh, it's
nervous.
fun.
Never
It's quite
done.
different. Yeah, it's quite, I really like it actually. So there's some crossover with our work. I would really love to hear a little about how you came to be a person doing this kind of work.
Yeah, so sometimes I say that I was born into it. I was born and into a family. I was a sibling of a bipolar brother who had really explosive behavior. And so I just had to learn how to weather really tough storms, even as a little kid. And then when I became a teacher, my favorite kids were the ones that came with a long paper trail behind them. And all of the teachers knew them, talked about them in the teachers' lounge, but they were my absolute favorites. And then when I became a parent, I figured I got this parenting gig figured out. I'm gonna be pretty good. I've seen the worst of it. But
Oh, yes.
yeah, that's not what happened. Instead, my oldest definitely tested everything I knew about education, about child development, about children, and all the things that I thought I knew were right. And so for the first 7 years, I basically felt like I was an absolute failure as a parent. And when he was 7, there was a moment where at this point he had been, kicked out of preschool. He was in trouble in kindergarten. He was suspended in first grade. And by second grade, he was kicked out more days than he was in school. I mean, he was that kid. And on this particular day, I got a call. I was 9 months pregnant, come to the school. He's had another fit. And he was in the office, and the whole staff was there. And the principal just ushered me past him and was like, "You have two options. You can either take him home and figure out what's wrong with him, or don't bring him back till you figure out what's wrong with him, or let this police officer take him into custody."
Oh my
And
God.
it was like pretty much a wake up call that we couldn't keep doing what we were doing and we had to figure things out. So we
Yeah.
kind of took a radical approach, and I brought him home, started homeschooling him, and started documenting my process along the way. Because as I looked for information on how to homeschool him or how to understand him or figure him out, this was 10 years ago. And so there was either no information, or the information you did find was picture perfect. And so my whole goal was just to prove to myself that I wasn't the only one out there who didn't know what they were doing. And the good news is I didn't find one person. I found millions of other parents around the world who were going through a lot of the same things that I was going through. And so over the last 10 years, just kind of have navigated the peaks and valleys of raising my son and my other two kids, and realizing that I was undiagnosed ADHD growing up as I've learned more about my kids, and then starting to teach that to other parents and create a framework and a system that works no matter what, challenge you're dealing with, because it's not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all. And that was the hardest part, is figuring out something that could be stretched and could be adapted to each individual person and family.
I love that. I work in a very similar way myself, Dana, and I think that's really, really important. And that you're talking about it as well, because I think, as you say, there's so many mass answers and generalized information that we receive. And sometimes that kind of bespoke guidance and bespoke customization actually is exactly what you need, because we're all individual. We have individual physiology, spiritual, mental, emotional backgrounds. And it's so important that we all know how to navigate this stuff. It's so, it literally, the way I think about it is it changes our future,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
for the whole of the human race. And I think
Right.
that's really the big thing about what you're doing, what makes it so powerful, And tell me a little bit about what does a day look like for you now? How old are your kids now?
Oh gosh. So I have my 7-year-old who was kicked out in second grade, or we brought him home in second grade. He just graduated high school.
Oh,
He's
wow.
17. And then I have a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Mm.
So yeah, in the throes of kind of preteen, teenage years. And, day in the life now, I mean, when you're talking about our family, it is so well connected. There was an experience that happened just the other day, and it just really painted the picture of the contrast of where we were and where we are. And we were sitting at the kitchen bar, and my daughter was trying to learn how to crochet. I was doing my knitting, and my husband was doing coloring in a new coloring book. And my 17-year-old came down and was asking us about things and was having conversations with us, talking about classes he wants to take. My 15-year-old then came down, was talking to us about things he was doing over the next weekend. And it just was like, I don't usually use the word peaceful, because I think that kind of, it feels like butterflies and rainbows, but it was
Yeah.
that moment where you were just like, is this my life? Is this really
Mm.
happening right now? And just that contrast of where we were and where so many of the families that I help are, it was such a contrast.
So, yeah, I understand what you mean about not calling it peaceful. I think that sometimes we can talk about, like you say, rainbows and sparkles and unicorns, and, it's not like that all the time. And
No.
there are still moments, certainly in my life, and I'm also a mentor and an educator as well, actually. And I have moments where I'm not perfect all the time. I have moments
Because
where
we're human.
I lose my
Mhm.
shit, and
Yeah.
I feel rage, and I get angry. And I think the difference between how it was in the past and how it is now is that I don't beat myself up about it. I no
Mhm.
longer feel that that means that I've done something wrong, or I am wrong, or they are wrong. I have huge helpings of self-compassion that
Yeah.
follow that signal. To me, it's a signal that I need something or they need something. So
Yeah.
it's really been interesting to notice that change. And similarly to you, I'll share a quick story too. I have a boy who is now almost 20, working, and he came for dinner. I don't see him all that often, to be honest, but when I do, he was telling me a lot about his work, and he said, "Oh, I just wish I could tell you more." He also works in education. He said, "I wish I could tell you more about really specific things, like the way that a particular child's face was when a particular thing happened, but it won't mean anything to you because you don't know them. But I wish I could tell you all of it." And it was so beautiful because, number
Yeah.
one, it told me that he is doing something he loves that much,
Yeah.
and that he found that at the age of 18. I mean, I don't think I found that till last year. Like, you know, it's taken me a lifetime to
Yeah.
find the things I love, and he just walked straight into it because of my help and because he knew himself so well. And when he said that, I just could see the joy of it, and the fact that he
Oh, I
wanted to
love
tell
that.
me and wanted to share it. And, it was a beautiful moment again.
Yeah.
And these moments, I mean, we got to celebrate them.
100%. We have to celebrate them and also not beat ourselves up, like you said, when the not so pretty moments happen, or the arguments happen, or we fall into like these old way habits that are just so deeply ingrained in us that
Yeah.
they come back up.
Yeah, and, they wouldn't be special if they happened all the time. That's the
Yeah.
way I look at it. So it's a bit like lollies, sometimes food, right? One thing I would really like to hear from you, I do want to hear a little more about how you came to write the book. Is it your first or second book?
This is my third book.
Third. Oh my gosh, I thought it was your second. That's
Oh
amazing. So tell me about the writing process and what's that like for you?
my goodness gracious. So the writing process was so interesting. The journey of writing this book was actually 4 years in the making. So we it probably a lot longer than that, but I remember in 2019 starting to think, okay, we're ready. Here it comes. Like I think I'm ready to write the book. And I remember sitting, it was November of 2019, and well, actually, summer of 2019, a mentor of mine was like, I think you're ready. You need to write the book. I'm going to introduce you to my agent. So I talked to the agent that summer, and he goes, I talked to a lot of people, and you've got it. You've got everything except for you don't have the letters behind your name. And that's like my Achilles heel is just like, yeah, I don't have letters behind my
Mm,
name. Just a teacher, just a mom, right?
yeah.
And just a coach or just a, an online leader, whatever. I don't know. And so, but I don't have all of those letters behind my name. And it's always been something that I've really kind of like struggled with. And so when the agent said it, it was just like this like shot to the heart. Like, oh, like you want me except for that I don't have a PhD. And I said, but I don't think you could write the book you're gonna write if you did have it. And I was
Right.
like,
That
"Okay."
is
Yeah.
cool.
So that was really cool. It was like a kind of like a moment, and I've held on to that this whole time. It was like the first time that I really stepped into, okay, wait, I do have something unique to offer. It isn't just, an amalgamation or a conglomerate of other stuff that I've learned. I really do have something to offer here as a bridge and the way that I present information.
And your
Perfectly.
experience.
Yeah, and my hard won experience, absolutely. And so then but it didn't just come naturally, like, writing the proposal and all that didn't come naturally, and so in the fall of that year, I was at a conference, and I'm sitting next to someone, and if I'm, like, giving way too many details, let me know, but,
Oh, no, I love the detail.
happens when it's late at night and I'm recording, so I'm sitting next to this person who I really loved, and she had just come out with her book, and it was her methodology in a book form. And as I'm like muddling through a proposal, I'm like, how'd you do it? Like, how did you feel comfortable putting your work? At this point, we had a course, we had a program, we had students who had gone through it, we had seen success, but they had me by their side, right?
Mhm.
Like you said earlier, bespoke, like we showed them how to personalize it. Like, how do you put that in a book and then know people are going to get results? And she was like, because I know my stuff works. Like she was
Yeah.
just so confident in it. I know this works. I've seen it work. And I didn't have that yet. And so then I kind of set forth, all right, we're gonna in when we did our next program in the fall or in March of 2020, I was like, this is gonna be it. I'm gonna prove to myself that this works. And this is what I'm kind of doing this for. Well, I don't know if you remember what happened in March 2020, but I turned in my proposal March 6th and then March 18th,
Wow.
the US shut down and then the rest of the world shut down and all the stuff, right, with the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we massively pivoted what we had done. We found people used our program. We were on like iteration number 2 at the time, and they used it and they saw success. And in this little tiny, environment, this little tiny ecosystem, we had people who were thriving, and 2020 was their best
Yeah.
year ever. So
Yeah.
I finally was like, okay, wait a second. This actually does work. So in October of 2020, we did another revamp and we were relooking at the proposal and we were saying, or relooking at the framework and saying, okay, where are people getting stuck? Where are people falling short? Where are people having trouble? Let's tweak the system here. And so we tweaked the system. We put out our third iteration of our system and people got faster results. They got easier results. They were like just making these massive leaps and bounds with their families in such a short amount of time that it made me realize, oh, wait a second, this is why the proposal didn't work, right? Because my
Right.
proposal got rejected after I submitted it. She was like, something
Wow.
on here, it's not going to
Interesting.
work. Yeah. And
So
so
interesting.
redid it in October and then went back to the drawing board again in 2021 and said, all right, I'm going to try to go back to this. And I realized that I just had so much fear that
Mm.
that I wasn't good enough, fear that someone else was going to have written this book while I was muddling through it. What if someone gets to it before me? Who am I to write this book? I mean, there was
Oh,
so
the imposter syndrome.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so much. And so 2021 was really muddling through that to
Mm.
finally say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to focus on that one person. So before I wrote the book or the second proposal, I would sit down and I would write a letter to
Right.
the person who I was hoping was going to read it.
That's so great.
I wrote a letter once to the mom in Target who's like,
Mhm.
rolling through Target. And I know in Australia you guys don't have those, but here it's like a
Oh, yeah, we
big.
do.
Oh, you do? Okay. Well, that's funny because we have 2 team members from Australia, and when they came to the US, it was their favorite thing.
Oh,
They
yeah.
like Target. I didn't know you guys had
We
it.
love it. Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
They were so happy to go to Target when they did that. So yeah, I pictured this mom in, the toy aisle of Target with 3 kids in tow, one in the cart tugging at her shirt, one
Oh
in the
my
aisle
gosh.
complaining about the Lego, another one trying to run off, and
Mm.
she's just at wit's end, and she looks over because the books are across from the toy aisle, and she sees the book. And that's what
Right. I
no,
love
it was
that.
like, I'm going to write it for this mom. I'm going to write it for this parent who just needs to know she's not alone. She's not failing. And that's really what drove me through the writing process. There was a lot of figuring out my systems and the way my brain worked. And really we took that 3.0 and we even simplified it even more.
Mm.
And so we just finished delivering the book as a program, as a course to our first group of people. And I got to tell you, when I thought 3.0 people made really fast progress, it is the fastest path to
Mm.
getting to a place where your family works together, where they advocate for each other, they empower each other. And it's done with just this compassion so that you can apply it to your own family. We had someone post today and say, this is the first time I've ever finished something that I've signed up for.
That's
So what made it a
amazing.
difference? And she said, it's just broken down into small bite-sized pieces. Plus, we worked on my belief that I can't finish something. And so because we worked on my thought monsters and my belief, I was finally able to get through it.
That's
And we've put
beautiful.
all of it in the book. I mean, I did not hold back. Some books, it teases it and then
No,
you're
you
like,
kind of get all.
oh, the
I agree
whole
with
thing's in
you.
there from, the
Agree with
whole,
you.
yeah.
One of our common mentors, Stu, says
yeah.
do more of what works and less of what doesn't, and it's that exact principle at play that you're talking about, I think. And you're inspiring me actually, because I'm in that stage with my membership where I've done iteration 1 and it's getting great results, but now I'm realizing, there's definitely some way that I could refine it and can condense it to make it simpler and easier for sure. And I'm always learning. I'm unashamed to say that I'm taking imperfect action and learning as I go, And I think that principle must imbue all that we do as mothers. And hopefully we allow other mothers to feel the same by modeling that, by doing that,
Yeah, absolutely. And even the plans that we walk through in the book, that's the principle, is this iteration.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what makes this so unique is because
Yeah.
I've done so much personal development
Yeah.
that is outside of parenting, that's in the business world, that's in, the mindset. And a lot of that comes through in the book because I think parents need it and they don't get it. They don't get this, here's how to take it one step at a time. Here's how to look at progress now. Here's how to swap your mindset. And so that's what I think part of what makes this book unique.
And I think often we don't realize how many puppet masters there are within, from our deep conditioning and sort of unpacking that and and debunking a lot of that stuff that drives us without us even realizing. I think I really love that about your work. But we are running out of time, Dayna Abraham. Can I please have you back another time?
Of course, yeah.
It's really beautiful to meet you. Similar to you, I've
Stunning.
been doing this a really long time, and it's rare to meet others that I feel work in this gentle way, in this very conscious and gentle way that is so loving. You have that lovingness about you. And so
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. And I'm so grateful for you coming and telling just a tiny bit of your story.
Oh,
A little
no.
bit, tiny
I'm
bit.
so
We could talk
grateful for
more.
for you having me, and
My
that,
pleasure.
I haven't really told a lot of like the book writing process outside of my little world. So it's nice to talk about
Mm. Yeah, well, I definitely would love to have you back again whenever you'd like. And
that.
I'm really looking forward to sharing with the listeners of this podcast where they can find you and where they can find your book, which I'll put in the show notes, of course. But is there anything you wanted to say about how you'd like to hear from them at this point?
Yeah, so I don't know when this is going to go live,
Soon.
but soon. Okay, so you can go to calmthechaosbook.com and you can download a free chapter just to check it out. And then if you like it, which I hope you do, you can pre-order the book and you can actually get a whole 2-hour behind the scenes
That's
of the
cool.
writing of the book and the creating of the book and all the ups and downs of that 4-year journey. And it was a Q&A, so there's a lot of really cool questions that I answered as well. And then you'll also get our 7 Days to Less Chaos course as a bonus when you pre-order the book. So it'll walk you through
That's
all of the
cool.
stages of going from survival mode to thriving as a family. And yeah, it's all free when you pre-order the book. And if you do that, please, please, please message me, tag me on social, let me know that you've checked it out. I want to hear all about, what resonated with you.
Thank you, Dayna Abraham. You have such a generosity of spirit, and that comes through
Oh,
in all
thank
that you're
you.
doing. So it is absolutely lovely to connect, and I hope we will keep in touch. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.